Hello, fellow rap nerds. Just a heads up, at the end of this episode, we do mention that our next pick was going to be Food by MF Doom, but we did release that episode out of order after Doom passed to honor him. So our next episode after this will be A Tribe Called Quest, Beats, Rhymes, and Life. Enjoy.
Welcome back, guys. Welcome to the Theraplizards podcast, the only show where two Jews and a Guyanese dude talk about hip-hop. It's good to be back. It's good to see you both. It's been too long. Gentlemen. It's been a long break. It's been a while. In our last episode, we took a little detour there. It was a fun detour. Don't be surprised if we do it again from time to time. We talked about Fiona Apple's new album last week. I think we all learned something last week. Yeah, it was a great. We did. It was a great show and a great album. I really enjoyed it. However, the format of this show is each week one of us, or each episode rather, one of us picks a different album, and almost always it's in the world of hip hop. And then we, come back and discuss it. It's an album that we love. I think the beauty of this show is we all love a lot of music. I'd say some of us are obsessives, others are casual listeners, and we really, we run the gamut. There's three of us. I myself, Benny. That's Gary. How you doing, Gary?
I only love a little bit of music.
I know. I love a lot of music.
Yeah, but you love appreciate it all.
I do. I'm appreciating more and more of it.
Yeah. Gary, good to see you. D, how you doing?
Yo, chilling, man, chilling. Can't wait to get through this, and I can't wait to not to think ahead, but I can't wait for you guys to see what my pick is, because I got the next pick next week. So,
oh shit! Yeah, okay, I'm excited.
That's a little tease. It's a little tease.
Yes, and this week was my pick, and I picked underground legends from the Bay Area, Berkeley in particular. Latyrx. Their first album, and it's like a sister album that came after it. It's Latyrx, the album, and the Muzappers Mixes. Both came out in the same year, I believe, 1997. Mm-hmm. Yeah, before we get into everyone's takes on it, I just love this group, these artists in this group, and like what they stand for and what they have accomplished in the field or in the realm of hip hop. I think they just stand alone. They're so unique.
Benny, talk about it. I gotta know. I gotta say, I did very little research about the Latyrx history and background. I know there's a lot of it. I know they've been making music for decades. What do you see? What do you love about it?
Yeah, man. Thank you for asking, Gary. No, so Latyrx is Latif and lyrics born Latyrx. That's where you get the name. Mm-hmm. They are two MCs in this awesome collective of hip hop artists called Quantum Projects, and their original name was actually Soul Sides, but in Quantum Projects, you have groups such as Black Alicious, and with great hip hop group. Yeah, Gift of Gab from Black Alicious is one of just the greatest MCs ever.
Who makes an appearance on one of these the first one?
I think Muzappers. He comes.
He's on Muzappers, right?
Yeah, and so Quantum Projects. You have Latif. You have Lyrics Born, Gift of Gab, DJ Shadow. And a host of other really talented, off the beaten path, I'd call all of them, hip hop artists. None of them are commercial. None of them follow fads. They really are trailblazers in the terms of rap performance and beat making. They're their own thing, And I think what I truly admire about Latyrx, both those MCs and Gift of Gab from Black Alicious, is they have uncanny breath control. Their ability to melodically rap, sing, and with it seems as almost as though they're not. Let that siren pass. Sorry.
Just let that siren pass. Boom, 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 boom.
I'm gonna start that over.
So the Siren Pass song is great, though.
Yeah,
it's pretty good.
so one thing I really love about Latyrx and Gift of Gab is their uncanny breath control. They flow, and it's almost hard to hear where they might be taking a breath sometimes. They are like flow geniuses, in my opinion. So Gary, you asked what I love, or what is it? What is it that I love about this group? And I think it's genre bending hip hop, right? Or genre blending hip hop, right? There's a lot of funk and R&B, yet it's so clearly MCs MCing. They're very talented, multisyllabic rhyming, really deep, introspective, and sometimes political lyrics, but also this emphasis and intention on keeping it about having a good time, which is such a unique, rarely sought after lane in hip hop, right? You have most artists are about not I don't want to say most artists, but so much of hip hop is about being a tough guy, and that's great. That's great. I love tough guy music in hip hop. But literally, Latyrx Born even says it on Aim for the Flickering Flame. He says, one thing I will never apologize is coming with the positive is coming with the positive vibes. That's what he's there for. He's about having a good time. They are also, I'm shocked I didn't mention Latyrx Born when we were talking about the Roots, how amazing they were live. I'd say Latyrx Born is number 2 on that greatest live MCs ever list. There's a live album on Spotify for anyone who's listening, anyone who wants to check it out. It's called Latyrx Born Overnight Encore. It's live 2006, I believe. Just listen to what that man is able to do live. Me and Dion got to witness it before. It is unbelievable what that man can actually do live without a hype man. It's brilliant. I was
going to ask, have you been to many shows?
Yes.
I've been to one with you, Ben.
Yep.
Ben, have you been to more than that?
That's that it. We saw him at
Brooklyn
Bowl. I got to shout out. Usually, right? So I discover music through a few different people, but usually my favorite artists, either Dion has introduced me to some amazing artists, my brother, Noah Zagor. Shout out Noah. We mentioned him a lot so far. He listens to the show. What up, bro? He's introduced me.
What up, Ian?
And Ian. He's all right. Whatever. Just kidding. Usually it's from one of those sources. Also, my man Mentals, Flippin' Mentals, introduced me to a lot of amazing hip hop. But Joe Freeman and Eitan Freeman, my dearest, oldest friends, actually put me on to Latyrx Born and Latyrx. And I always think about them so Joe actually invited me and Dion to go check out Latyrx Born live at Brooklyn Bowl. He was supposed to go on at 10:30. He went on after 12. Remember that day?
Perfect.
It was very late
hip-hop
night.
show.
It was a very late night, but it was flooring, Gary.
Hold up. So, Benny, I know your philosophy on seeing
on time.
Live music and seeing hip hop live, right? And I know that you have a narrow kind of band of things that you enjoy within live hip hop. So does this fall within that band?
This is a perfect example of why I don't like most hip hop shows, because they're nothing like what we saw that night. It was incredible, Gary. I'm telling you, man, all you have to do is listen to that live album and you'll understand why. He didn't have a live band with him that time, but he does often tour with a live band. His only other vocalist on stage is his wife, who sings on these if you ever hear a woman singing normal on his songs or on Latyrx songs, it's normally his wife Joy. So she was the other vocalist, and she might do some harmonizing with him, but there's no hype man, there's no sloppiness, and it is such an incredible example of rehearsed breath control, mastery of your own voice as the lead instrument in a concert. And
Whoa.
Yeah, Gary,
that's cool.
I highly recommend.
I'm just thinking back to I'm thinking back to there was an interview with Latyrx Born. I think you linked to in the chat, Benny.
Yeah.
And I was listening to it and just listening to Latyrx Born talk about his touring schedule. And that's crazy. That blew my mind. I think he tours like
150
one out
days
of
or something.
Yeah, it's like more than a third of these. It's like one out of every 3 nights a year or more. He's performing.
That's like Grateful Dead levels of performing. It's
the fact that he's doing that with his with his wife as as part of the group and kind of touring. I think that I respect that. I just watched The Godfather with Sarah, and there was that line in the beginning. A man who doesn't spend time with his family can never be a real man. But I think there's truth to that, right? I think that's really cool that he's able to, since he's been doing this for decades, able to work that into his life, make his life not get destroyed by that kind of touring schedule is pretty awesome.
And you could see that like in his face and in his answers for that same interview. Just like how like just comfortable he is, and like he doesn't seem like this like one of these guys on edge. He just like even the way he said is like, yeah, I tour 150 days out of the year. It's like, whoa, bro, that's that's a big deal. That's crazy. But yeah, I think it's got to have something to do with his work-life balance, because it is work. I mean, you got to remember this shit is work. It may be fun for us to listen, but it's work for these guys. But it just sounds like his work-life balance is just there and perfect. And it kind of, I mean, I don't know if it shows in the music, but I mean the music is pretty relaxed and chill. So maybe it has something to do with it. I don't know.
It's funny that you use the word relaxed. I think it's so amped, man. I think it's just because they hit all the right marks for me. Like I feel invigorated and energized when I listen to Latyrx. I think they're, and Latyrx Born, quite frankly. I'm not as familiar with Latif's solo work. I know he, anytime I hear him, he's dope. He had an awesome collab album with Gift of Gab from Black Alicious called Mighty Underdogs.
So good.
Highly recommend it. It will probably cover that album at some point, D, I think.
Got to.
But what it is about Latyrx is they not only are they unique, right? Not only do they have remarkable breath control, and we haven't spoken about breath control much. Someone who we already covered who has incredible breath control is Royce, the 5'9", because he can just keep going, and there's very.
I thought you were gonna say Busta.
Yeah, and Busta
as well.
100%
Busta Rhymes as
something
well.
he's learned and picked up, and now is the kind of the what a lot of people think of as a kind of awesome breath control master.
100%, and these are all breath control masters. And so not only is it that, I think, there's also this dedication to like keeping it funky, right? The music has these deep funk roots, and it's not necessarily, a lot of artists were sampling P-Funk, but the music itself wasn't necessarily funk songs anymore. They made it into rap music. But some of these songs, in particular, I'll just say it, my favorite song out of everything released on these albums, on these 2 albums, and I don't even know if Muzappers Mixes is considered an album, but at any rate,
it can't be. We'll get into that, but it just can't be.
We'll get into it, but there's so many new songs on it. At any rate, is on Muzappers Mixes. It's called Lady Don't Techno, and that, to me, that's my favorite song ever by either Latyrx Born solo or Latyrx. It is marvelous. I love it. And so on that song is a perfect example of what I love about them. They incorporate tonality and pitch changing in their music. So they're rapping, but they're also singing, right? They're not singing per se. It's not an R&B song. It's not a funky funk song. It's a rap song, but they changed the
it's not It's not like Drake. It's not like what Drake does. Like Drake goes into straight up R&B, and we're not shitting on Drake. I actually do kind of respect that he does that, but that's neither here nor there. But it's not that. Like Drake goes into straight up R&B mode, and then he switches back to hip hop. These guys, they keep the hip hop vibe, like very much so. It's more like, I mean.
It's the closest thing I could think of. The closest thing I could think of, Dion, and they don't sound anything like them, would be Bone Thugs and Harmony.
Exactly.
But it's
a great example, dude.
It's spitting, but there's also this clear work was put into the tone of their voice and the changing of their tone of their voice in a very musical, singing way. So
Bone Thugs was complex as shit, dude.
Yes. Oh, totally.
And they also had like crazy breath control also. I mean, out of all the groups that definitely have gills besides lungs, right? I don't know how else they're doing it. I think this group, Bone Thugs, definitely, and the speed of their flow sometimes, etc. But also the flavor kind of reminded me of other West Coast things that I associated with West Coast, like Farside. I don't know why. But the fact they do sing, right, as well as rap, and there's musicality to it that's a little bit. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe we could pick this apart and figure it out. But like, there's some similarity there that really rung true to me.
It's the funk. I think it's the funk.
Well, it's the funk, and Gary, you nailed it with Farside, right? I think about She Keeps Passing Me By. My dear, my dear, my dear, you do not know me, but I know you very well. So let me tell you about the feelings I feel for you, and I try, right? Or, there's a few different moments where both Fat Lip...
Damn, I wish I wasn't such a wimp.
Yeah,
but...
exactly. But that is a perfect... I think that's a predecessor to what Latyrx Born and Latif are trying to do here, And so I think about Lady Don't Take... Lady Don't Take No Bet to set them and to take herself so serious. She don't bet to set them and then he goes into... This is Latif here. He goes, she don't like violence, so she can do the things that don't let you go down. He starts singing for a minute, but then goes back to rapping, and it's so smooth and not. Sometimes remember when you heard Eminem sing for the first time on like the Eminem show, and you're like, and now he sings a lot, and it's jarring to me.
Doesn't make it much better.
No, it's jarring. It's a little weird,
Here's somebody that clearly is a composer at heart and realizes what they want on their music, and that's but not everybody is able to execute.
I would say Eminem's execution on the singing front is, in my opinion, not great. But
it's not bad though. Speaking of Eminem, Royce, who's recently been doing that shit, his voice is great. It's actually great, and it's like the very first time, similar to Eminem, like the very first time I heard Royce sing, it was a little awkward because this is Royce 5'9", he's coming with like a singing voice, but then 2 seconds later, it's like, all right, wait, this ain't cheesy. This is actually pretty good. Like he ain't Luther Vandross or nothing, but like he can sing. It's good.
Definitely, he could sing.
But it's still a different style than what Latyrx does. Like Latyrx, still I would even
voices.
Exactly. But they still keep that hip hop. Even when Royce goes into singing, he switches to more of an R&B kind of soul kind of. But with Latyrx, when they go into singing, they still maintain that hip hop. It's just now a little bit more harmonizing, a little more musical.
Yo, when Latyrx Born on Lady Don't Take No, and he goes, the little shorties want to jump in your lap. Girl, I want to do that myself. You know what I mean? He literally somehow, and that was a rap. That was a bar, But somehow, because his voice, he has a strong grasp of tonality in his voice and honestly singing on key, that he can sing and rap at the same time. It's really beautiful to me. Another perfect example of that is Latyrx Born's feature on Do This My Way. I know you've heard this song before by D. On Black Alicious' I think their debut album, there's a song called Do This My Way, and Latyrx Born has just a phenomenal way of singing. I'll be the first ever Asian astronaut blasting off like a mastodon. Rode a mastodon out of Jurassic Park, chased by a fan in a tyrannosaur mask. He's singing and rapping, and it's awesome. It hits all the right marks for me. And that's what I'd say about these two projects. Latyrx, the album, I don't think anyone ever heard anything like that in 1997 when it came out. First track, guys. What I want to know, because I want to know your thoughts just on the first song, Latyrx. Dion, I know you got a lot here, so Gary, what was the first thing I have a feeling I might know, but what was the first thing you thought of when you heard two people rapping, but not in unison, completely different verses at the same time?
Look, I have a high tolerance for many things. Okay, and fine. Okay, fine. And it's hard for me to get into new music, right? And my process for getting into these two pieces of work, right? These two albums, it was the usual, right? The usual is, put up my tolerance level, turn down the volume, and listen, right? Listen and nod my head and get to see what I could appreciate about this, right? How it changes my mood. And it did all these things well. And then I kind of noted, okay, this first song is interesting. The dissonance is a little, maybe aggravating, but that's okay. That's clearly intentional. Let's move on. I don't know. I guess this...
I had a feeling. I had a weird feeling when I put that song on in my headphones just this week, getting ready. What am I going to say? I'm going to be like, oh, Gary's going to hate this.
No, that never happened. That never happened because it really was their work really is great.
Okay.
I enjoyed it. I was not in my head throughout. I drove to it for hours, just kind of going from one place to another last week, and I was digging it overall. But I think I probably need months to years more time with it before I could get into it to the extent that I know, Benny, you're into it, and I'm gathering, Dion, that you got into it probably a little deeper than I did.
So D, tell me about your takes on Latyrx, the song.
So, I mean, I've known this album for a little while too, so it's not the first time I heard the song, but it's the first time in a while that I heard it, so I kind of forgot that was the first track. So I'm listening and I just start laughing. I'm like, yo, this is just levels, yo. This is Latyrx on Latyrx on Latyrx, just levels, kid. That was the first thought that I had. It's interesting. It's always been kind of a standout hip hop song. There's always those unique songs. I wish I came up with a list of that actually. That'd be a good list. That'd be a good list, songs. Actually. Unique, interesting, different songs. I would even put the song "Rewind" by Nas can fall into a couple of different categories. Best story song, unique song. But that's an example.
We should do that.
Different kind of song.
Yeah, or "Give Me Some More" by Busta Rhymes, fast rapping that kind of brought it into my consciousness a little bit.
It was a new sound for sure. I think about the song that Busta did with Royce on Street Hop. Because it wasn't to a 4/4. It was one of the only rap songs that was not in 4/4 time. It literally, the rhyme came I think it was 7 or something. It was really strange, very strange. Anyway, Dion, please keep going.
Now, actually, and now you mentioned Nas also has a song on one of his most recent albums that I think is in 3/4 time, and he raps in 3/4. I mean, Nas can do it because it's fucking Nas. But it's interesting. So so I always thought this was a unique song. It is kind of pleasing to the ear. And Ben, you sent us a video of Latif talking about their songwriting process, and that kind of opened my fucking mind. I didn't know that about them. And that was how they wrote songs. Basically, for the audience to know. Actually, you know what, Ben? Since you, why don't you go into that? What was Latif's how do you describe how him and Latyrx Born come to songwriting? Because it's really incredible and unique.
So this interview, by the way, it's on YouTube. If you ever want to look for it, his words are more effective than mine. But so Latif, and I just. I always just assumed this by listening, but he starts talking about Latyrx Born's and Latif's writing process. When they go to write a Latyrx song, which is not like most rap groups. We always, we've talked about that studio camaraderie and evidence that people are working together on a song rather than emailing their beats their verses to each other. When they sit down to write a song, they actually go in and comment on each other's lyrics to make sure that, Latyrx Born might say, well, I wouldn't say it that way. I would say it like this, and Latif vice versa, so that when they have a finished product, what you're getting is the group's the group in their most comfortable form, you know, and the exchange of lyrics is fluid. So when they switch off, there's this true fluidity and transfer of and keeping in a vibe.
Dude, I didn't listen to this interview, but I definitely felt that in the music, where it wasn't a jarring difference between the two artists here. It was definitely a shared vision that they both either cared about and knew very, very well, or actively edited together.
I've known the song before seeing that little clip. It's like a 3-minute clip or whatever. And I had my opinion on it before. I actually liked it. It's obviously a little jarring and very different, but I always liked it. But I went into it like a little more respect after I found out how they did it, and I realized, oh, okay, so they must have taken so much time.
Yes.
Spent so much time to figure out the exact voice inflections and like pitches and everything like that for transition. Well, there really wasn't any transition. They were going at the same time, but they must have figured out exactly like, how do we make this? Because look, at the end of the day, you put the concept of two rappers rapping at the same exact time, with not saying the same thing. Really, their verses not really having much to do with each other. Maybe theme wise, but not like in terms of like how they're rapping, whatever. On the surface, you think of that like on paper, it's like, oh, that's gonna sound like fucking garbage. Like,
right.
Like that's not rocket science. But so they must have done something to make it not sound like ear garbage, which it really should have been, and it actually was pleasing to the ear.
Absolutely, Dion. Absolutely, and that's the most shocking part. Is I think after a few listens, Gary, it was jarring to me at first too. I was like, oh, okay, this is crazy for the sake of being crazy. That was my first, when I first discovered Latyrx, that was my first take. I was like, first song I ever heard by them, besides Lyrics Born on Do This My Way by Black Alicious, was Latyrx, the song. And my first take while I'm hearing these two dudes intricately speed rapping different verses at the same time, I was like, this is crazy for the sake of being crazy. That was my first take on it. But now, listening intently, I think it sounds fucking awesome. And and I think so much work went into, okay, when I'm going to quiet down here, you take, I'm going to my verse is going to take a lull. You put in percussive loud parts. Then when you go down, I'm going to come in, I'm going to raise the volume and maybe change my tonality, and you could hear the transfer in like who's taking the lead throughout, and it's mind-boggling to me because it really does work, in my opinion. They're completely different verses in unison, and I still don't know what the fuck they said. Excuse me, I don't know. I don't know any words to that first verse on that song. But it's like an art piece. I think it's beautiful. And then
when sounds really intimate.
Yeah. When they come in like with their solo verses, right? I think that song is like such a beautiful snapshot of everything they're capable of. So like then you get Latif. Yes. So yes. You're dealing with lyricists. That's fresh. One breath. Latif doing his thing. I think before that you have Lyrics Born, who's literally rapping like a news broadcaster. You know what I mean? Like his voice is like, he's like rapping it's almost like you're listening to NPR or like the Weather Report or some. It's a very strange song. So if the album kept in being as weird as that song, I wouldn't like the album. But it gets a lot less weird from there, in my opinion.
Exactly. They hit you with it, and it's like, all right, here's what we're about. We're going to knock this out. We can get this out the way. But it didn't feel like a throwaway, and I'm not saying that. But, like, it's like, all right, here's who we are. Here's our introduction to the world. All right, now let's get into, like, more.
This is 97, right? This is 97?
This is 97, yeah.
You got to make a bold move in 97.
Dude,
got to make a bold statement. There's too much good music in 97.
There's so much good music, but also just think about what hip hop music sounded like in 1997. I'm talking Wu-Tang Forever.
Yep.
Life After Death.
No, Life After Death. Yeah.
Busta Rhymes had just released When Disaster Strikes.
Yeah, When Disaster Strikes.
That was the at least we're from New York. That's the shit we were hearing in 1997. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Tribe. What kind of West Coast shit was happening in '97? Like, what was really the thing to listen to?
That was like sort of
the tail end
of Death Row,
Death Row, which was gangster rap was the sound of the West. in the mainstream, right? You did have, and I think
Right.
you
So
can't.
Bone Thugs was pretty big at the time.
That was Bone Thugs was popping, and but the popular sound was nowhere near the lane Latyrx was taking. They were adjacent to the hieroglyphics movement in the Bay Area around the same time as well. That's Dell, Souls of Mischief, that sound. Yeah. And I think they share a lot of the same fans, maybe, from the West Coast.
Yeah, I'm thinking about
it's
where
northeast, really. Oh, sorry, northwest.
Right.
Where in the Murrow High School hangout area would they be?
I think these are music hall kids.
These are music hall kids.
I think these are
music hall kids.
Yeah. Music hall kids adjacent to the stairway. Like
closer to the lobby.
Some opportunity for weird shit.
For those listening, we went to high school at Edward R. Murrow, and it was this really weird. Like, you could look at it as a social experiment because kids were allowed to hang out in the hallways.
We didn't have lunch period. Just for context, we didn't have lunch periods. The way Murrow worked was you made your own free period. So like I may have a free period like at 11 a.m. Ben may have his free period at like 11:30. You're meant to like eat lunch or whatever at that point. But what that does is there's no set lunchtime in the lunchroom. So when people like, it's like you check with your friends like, oh, you're free at this time. All right, cool. We're gonna hang out in the lobby. Like that. That was like the chill thing. It's like anywhere you go, like, to this day, if you go in New York and you see anyone randomly like comfortable sitting on the floor anywhere. Chances are they went tomorrow. Chances are, because that's just all we do.
There are other ways. There are other ways, but I think that the best way to get comfortable sitting on the floor is Murrow.
Yeah,
I had a COVID test across the street from Murrow the other day, by the way.
Wow. and let's
how'd that go?
Negative. All good.
Good. Are you positive?
I'm positive. I'm negative, baby.
But let's be fair, Dion. Every period was a free period for Benny Lander.
That was white tea Ben.
But what I'm getting at here is, sorry, this has nothing to do with Latyrx anymore, but we did, for context, because you were allowed to hang out throughout the school in the hallways, inevitably, certain, personality types hung out in different places. I was a center lobby kid. That's where the derelict skater hippies hung out.
Right. And diplomats.
And like the hip hop heads, that's where we, skaters and weird kids
punks,
who might
weirdos, and
prefer to,
this is where I was having a conversation with like Dion, in the lobby, having a serious, earnest conversation, while for maybe 5 minutes Fred was whispering in my ear. until I realized.
What up, Red Walrus?
But the music hall kids were the ones who they were all music majors, right? And they were weird like us, but less derelict-y. And I think that's where Latyrx would have hung out. At any rate, just don't go to the fourth floor, man. So lost track.
Also, just to finish up on that song, that song probably has the sickest 2 bars on the entire album. Which is it's two lines that me and you, Ben, have talked about for years. It's Lyrics Born, where he goes, and I taught Neanderthal to use a rosary phone. I kicked the devil in his neck without my rosary on. That's probably the sickest 2 lines in the whole album.
Such a hard bar. I taught Neanderthals to use a rotary phone. I kicked the devil in his neck without my rosary on. Crazy.
So yeah. If there's any doubt that these guys are like fucking lyricists, like just go take a look at this. I mean, there's other examples too, but like those are my 2 favorite bars on this album, probably.
Yeah, and the album moves in a bunch of different directions. I'd say so. When I compare Muzappers Mixes, which came out subsequently, the difference is I think Muzappers Mixes. It expands upon the song. It's called the Muzappers Mix. Is that right? Aim for the Flickering Flame and Rankin Number 1.
The one song, yeah.
Yeah. So like they kind of took 2 songs to the same beat and like mashed them together in on the official album. And I think those 2 songs, if I'm not mistaken, start off Muzappers Mixes, but the full versions
the
of them.
3 or so songs is
using
that same beat.
Totally. And I think the rest of Muzappers Mixes kind of builds upon those elements and carries in that vibe of funky, soulful hip hop. Whereas I think Latyrx, the album, it goes in a lot more different directions. You know, I think about on Latyrx, the album, the song, it's a very introspective song. I'm blanking on the name. Dion, maybe you can help me. Where Lyrics Born is almost like you're listening to his thoughts. You know what I'm talking about?
Balcony
Beach.
I wrote it up too.
Is it Balcony Beach?
Yep, Balcony Beach. Yeah, because I actually have that note. Very inward thinking. It's like we're in a stream of his thoughts. I literally have that note.
To him just kind of thinking about life. And it's really cool. Really,
what did he have to say?
These things. Like he's I don't have any of the lyrics in my head right now. I'm sorry, but like he's just kind of like contemplating the meaning of life in the whole song, right, Dave?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Again, really introspective. There's been a few other songs on some of the albums we've talked about that there's some similar things. Of course, again, I'm drawing a blank myself on that too.
These are the times where like I actually started to get further into the album, like or when the subject matter of what we're listening to is, hey, I get mad nice, I stomp the devil, I kick the god, whatever else. I think like, you know what? I don't care. I don't care. Like I don't have that long to live. Neither does this guy. I don't care how nice he is and who he kicks. Right? Like that's like that theme is like it's kind of just rebounding off of me. It's like water at this point.
Gary, what do you mean by that? Are you saying like are you saying you're not as impressed with the sort of bars and the lines, or just the subject matter?
Here's the thing: the subject matter. I think that it's very well executed. But like looking back at this project that we're doing, we listened to Fiona Apple last time, right? That is totally about like life and other kind of everyday stuff. We listened to Undone by the Roots, which is like about some serious ass shit, right? That really like it's about life in a way that is jarring and like will make you think. And like when I'm hearing lyricists talk about how nice they are, I mean, it's cool. It's good to see the acrobatics there, and it's good to see genius manifested in any form. But like, I don't care. I don't care how nice people are.
I love how nice people are.
What do you care about them? Yeah,
I don't know, man. Like, I care about well, at this point, like the stuff that blows my mind more easily, where I am able to open the door more easily, is like, I don't know, things that make me think about our society, make me think about my place in society, make me think about like what family is, right? What friendship is, like, deep shit. And it's hard for me to access that when I'm just hearing a lyricist talk about how great of a lyricist they are.
It's no matter
how isn't it? Can you look at it more of like kind of? I mean, I'd hate to say escape, but
no, that's what it is.
Like personally, I'm with you, Gary. Like, yeah, exactly. Like I'm with you, of course. Like especially this year with all the shit that's going on right now. Of course, like the most important thing you want to think about are again like the important issues. But like same time, if I every now and then I want to pop on some music and kind of escape.
Of course, dude. And sometimes you want to hear about you want to hear something that's just funny for being funny, right? And sometimes you want to hear about it. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I'll interject and say, like, I'd rather hear Busta Rhymes say some shit like, "I'll walk through brick walls and hijack your whole shopping mall." Like, I'd rather hear him say that than be political. Yeah. I don't mind political artists. Right. Royce in particular is extremely political lately. He's probably my favorite artist that is on that lane of talking about the things that need to change in society and systemic racism is very important, and he makes beautiful music while doing it. There is always room in my catalog for artists that are true escapism, that are just, yeah, man, tell me how awesome you are in creative ways. Yeah. Because I want to. I don't want to fucking think about how horrible our situation is right now. I want to hear how great you are at rapping. You know what I mean? Like,
see that, and that's. It's funny you say that, Ben, because I guess I'm kind of in between. I don't look at it as like an either or. Like you said, I'd rather listen to Busta do that than to get political. I'm saying I want to hear both. Like, right? Because like that's part of the narrative. Like you can't really. Totally. Look, I'm a black dude in America. I can't just escape and like think and say, okay, yeah, no, now I don't want to think about this shit. Like no, it's just gonna be in my fucking brain at all times. So like, I want my artists. Like I'm fine with my artists saying that whenever they want. Like I guess the point is like I'm kind of in between both of you guys. Like I'm not like I wouldn't. It's not an either or for me. It's just like all right, like this is what he's doing here. Bus has done political stuff too, and he's done some
for sure.
Yeah.
And you know what, Ben? To your point, like absolutely. If Busta's ELE2 album that's coming out later this month, hopefully, fingers crossed, is like all about some super serious stuff, and it's just Busta and like and like some talking about some real serious refugee business and some current events, right? I would listen to it, but I would be surprised, right? That's not what I'm looking forward to in that album. Right? I'm looking forward to some other stuff.
I hear
so you know what? Maybe it's my own as a grown person who is now set in his ways, as grown people get, right? Like I'm willing to tolerate or I'm willing to enjoy nonsense from the people I already admire. But then if somebody else is talking some nonsense, I'm like, there's no room for you. There's no room.
I see what you're saying, Gary. I understand
like,
what you mean.
So you're saying you already have Cool Keith in your life. You already have Busta Rhymes. You already have Dion. Maybe some Necro when no one's around. And so you don't have room for anyone else.
Kind of. I'm just like, all right, this guy's really nice too. But
I hear
seats taken.
For me, this is what it comes down to, Gary. It's interesting. I'm glad we're talking about this. For me, for every Streets of New York by Cool G Rap or New York State of Mind by Nas or one of these songs that really, or The Message, for every one of these songs, right, there also needs to be a rapper's delight. There needs to be, a weird, creepy Cool Keith song, and there needs to be a battle bar song about just how amazing you are at rapping. And all of them, I'm a little different than you in that all of them do something for me in hip hop. I mean, in the same way that a bad rap song, in my opinion, something that I find to be not great, will ruin my day. Like I can't listen to bad music. So like
that's a problem.
No, it's a big. I know it's my own head trip.
Crazy. It's a dangerous world out there for you.
I know, man.
Yeah, seriously.
I was talking about. I remember I told you about. I mentioned it to the kid at my job. I told you about the kid at my job who like he'll just throw on whatever the fuck like is what they listen to in the bodegas wherever you go to. It's like like some bad music, and I spoke to him that I mentioned him on the show the other day. He laughs it off. He doesn't understand.
I mentioned that you upset me.
No, he doesn't. He knows we're cool. He doesn't upset me. But like, I think it's more bewildering to him that like I am such a douche about music than it is to me that people can listen to that shit. At any rate,
as a person who does listen to that shit, sometimes I feel for it. I get where you're coming from.
Whatever. But can we let's be honest here. There is nothing about either of these two projects by Latyrx that is remotely commercial or remotely even attempting to get radio play. Right?
Right.
You know what's actually so what's funny about that, Ben? I think that there's one song we talked about already that could easily be a radio hit.
Lady No
Techno.
It was easily. Wasn't it on Entourage?
I think it was on a few things. Yeah, because it's way too familiar of a song. But it's funny that you mentioned them about not being commercial artists because as Latyrx Born mentioned, and of course we do remember this. He mentioned it in his interview. One of his songs was literally like the theme song for Coca-Cola for like 5 years.
Is that right?
Calling out to all radio. That was fucking Coca-Cola. He talked about it in an interview. So it's funny that like you're right. Aside from that, they are the most like un-mainstream artists, except for the one major mainstream thing that Latyrx Born did. And I'm not knocking it. Like I commend it. I respect it.
Yo, but that song is not a commercial sounding song. That is a funk song. If you've listened to it,
but it is now though. It's
now because it's in.
It made itself into.
I didn't know it was a Coca-Cola commercial personally. All I know is just the song, and it is like a funky song that sounds like no other hip hop song released in 2003.
Ben, I kind of disagree. I agree that it's definitely more funky than hip hop, but I don't agree that it's not a radio. I mean, put that song on. Maybe it's a bias because I know it's a commercial, but like that, it's a very commercial sounding song. It's great.
I dance every time that song comes on. My car bumps. I love it, but I would argue.
Song we're talking about?
No, I don't.
It's a great lyrics
goes,
it played at my wedding.
Calling out to all radio hits, to all people that are rocking right here, right now.
Yeah,
Do you have any idea what I'm talking about? I'm a terrible
I
singer.
do. It does. It does. No, it does. Come on, Dion. You're a great singer. No, it sounds familiar. I think I'll jam to it after this.
Yeah. But yeah, sorry, I just thought that was funny when you mentioned that about them not being commercial. You're absolutely right, except for the one major thing where he went fully commercial. But that was just Latyrx Born. It had nothing to do with Latyrx.
And it was
10 years
just
after this album came
and
out.
I think it was a non-commercial conforming song that found commercial success.
Yes.
So in the same way that,
and he did talk about that in an interview.
Right.
He was kind of surprised. He was like, "Oh, okay, sure, that's what you want to do. Why not?"
Same way like Wolfpack had an Apple commercial. Like their song, that song is fucking weird as fuck. But I think it was on an iPhone commercial, Back Pocket by Wolfpack. So, at any rate, the vibe I get from this album is individualism. It's people paving their own path and not at all interested in conformity, right? You know how I feel about shit that sounds like other people's shit. It gets frustrating for me. I'm like, dude, like, why do you want me to, like, what about this is unique enough that my valuable time should be spent listening to it? You know what I mean?
And there was plenty, back to this point of like, at the time this came out, there was plenty of stuff to inform musicians' tastes and inform new music if you want it to sound like other people.
And these guys are like, fuck that.
They wanted no part of it. And even it's not like a West Coast thing. It's not like, oh, that's what they're doing on the East Coast. Let's do this West Coast thing. Their sound is nothing like what was happening in mainstream on the West Coast. It's such an embrace. I think the sounds they embraced were late 70s, early 80s funk music. I think that's the blanket
I was gonna say, if you look at the sample
inspiration.
list, like the majority, the majority of these samples are 70s songs. There's a couple 60s in there. There's like 1 or 2 80s songs, but the majority of the samples used in this album, and you could tell it's not. You could obviously tell, but yeah, it's a lot of 70s influence.
How does that even happen? Where like if you're creating music in this era and you have so much great stuff to be inspired by, how do you make something this unique? I think they had to like have Well,
I think they're music students, if I'm not mistaken, or at least they're from Berkeley. And their collective, like the Quantum crew, just I can't confirm this. I know that Latyrx Born's wife Joy is like a trained opera singer, so I think that's probably where they all learned breath control from, quite frankly. And I think like
makes sense.
Berkeley in itself is a very like off the beaten path type of place where when I think of Berkeley, I think of like the school of music and like that's where we get again bands like Wolfpack and sounds like that, funky technical music. A lot of that's what I think about when I think of Berkeley. Hippies too, you know what I mean? So they were around other eclectic musicians.
The hippie vibe is there too. It seems like they just dug a hole, and like got in there and like burned wet leaves and just fucking sat there for a while until they came up with this sound. With a bunch of 60s records, maybe.
Yeah, man. It's something weird happened, right? Like you gotta imagine something weird happened in their lives, or like something unique. Their influences are weird. It's gotta be to create music like this. Latif is, and I think this needs to be said, right? So Latif is, I believe, half Puerto Rican, half black, if I'm not mistaken. One of his parents was a Black Panther.
Yep.
And Latyrx Born is the most soulful voice, and let's be honest, doesn't sound like what he looks like. Can we? I know that might sound. What I mean is he sounds like a black man to me singing. He sounds like a deep, soulful voiced soul singer sometimes, and he is an Asian man.
It's uncommon to see a person born in Tokyo being popular in this genre, right? Maybe that's just kind of the way that we're geared up to
But think about the tone of his voice, Gary. You know what I mean? Aim for the flickering flame. They not aim and
it's got rasp and it's got soul.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, man. If I say that I noticed that he's an Asian man when hearing this album, that would be fucked up.
But
I didn't.
You didn't, right?
I promise.
But But so let's talk about another great Asian rapper, right? Skills. He's dope, but he doesn't sound necessarily like a different race. I'd say Latyrx Born doesn't sound like he looks, and that's okay. I know I'm not. I know I'm not being.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, do
intolerant,
people, like, men and women generally sound different, right? But like, can we really, really, really tell the difference between people's race and when we're listening to them sing or rap? I think it's harder. I think it's harder. I think whatever it is, the differentiator gets lost because it's really in like our dialect where it really comes through. It's like where we're from.
It could be exactly. It could be regional. It could be a lot of
all right, maybe I'm getting a little too. Maybe my statement was a little too insensitive or a little too.
Yeah, man, you need to get in a hole and burn some wet leaves.
But my point is, listen, my point is, this man has a deeply, deeply soulful, powerful voice, and not, he's a unique individual. He's extremely talented. So, D, gotta ask. You are our spit professor. You are the guy who comes up with the gems, and what on this album and on these albums? Because I'll tell you after some songs that really, really, really resonated with me off Muzappers. But what are there verses? Are there songs? Are there moments? What tickled your?
I think my tickled my fancy.
What tickled, man?
Yeah, what tickled?
So I think my two favorite songs on the album is let's see, we got Burning Hot in Cali on a Saturday Night with Gift of Gab.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about hip hop? Like, once again, happens every hip hop album we do. I feel like this might be that one song. Either hip-hop. This or The Quickening, but I think probably this song where it's that one song where it's like this is hip hop. This is just pure hip hop. This is what you're gonna hear. I mean, to be honest, between the two albums, there's actually another song that's a better example than that's Cloud 9. Cloud 9,
so good.
It's just there's nothing that special about the beat. It just has that classic boom bap kind of drum kick to it and like a little bit of musicality. It's just a classic beat, but like the lyricism is fucking incredible. It's on point. So in terms of like that hip hop song, I'd probably say it's that for Muzappers Mix, and Burning in Hot Cali on a Saturday Night, and then again also the Quickening. The Quickening is fucking dope. I mean,
agreed.
And
agreed.
I also love that he shouts out some NBA players, including Knicks alum Marcus Camby. Just kind of random. But yeah, like those are the two like that like just stick out of me. I can't tell you specific verses on either of those songs that I liked. I just liked them. They were just like I put them on and like and to be honest, for most of the album, I kind of looked at both of these albums as like, all right, this is what I could put on in the background of the party. I'm probably not putting this on if I want to like really like jam out to like hip hop. You know what I mean? Like I want to like listen to like a hip hop album. I'm probably not putting either of these albums on. They have individual tracks. But that being said, like those songs, like I like were like sort of took the cake for me. Like if you just put those two songs plus Cloud 9, and maybe added in some like Latyrx Born songs or Latif songs or Mighty Underdog songs, then to me that could be like a sort of like a really like solid hip hop album. This album, and I know I'm sort of like shifting topics, but
it's all good.
Just in general for the album, I guess it kind of speaks to that, like the fact that these two like do stick out to me as like the hip hop songs sort of speaks to like the rest isn't the most hip hop-ish album. I guess that's what I'm trying to get at.
It's not.
You know what it felt like to me? It felt like a Sublime album a little bit, right? With some of the interludes, especially like the interludes. I mean, all of it felt really hip hop to me, but not it didn't feel like New York East Coast hip hop, which is kind of the beat of my heart. But I really loved, there was a song on here, maybe it was more of an interlude, Live at 93.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's like Latif freestyling. Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome. That felt like such hip hop. I really appreciated that. It gave the album a lot of texture to me.
There was a time, man, and I think hip hop albums don't do this anymore, but there used to be at least one of those tracks on like every hip hop album back in like the 90s. That one track where it was just like the raw, like live, whether it was live or quote unquote live.
It was
like
it was a
short,
trope,
short and sweet verse. Yeah, right. Like that, like the trunk shit, basically, right? Like I feel like hip hop doesn't really do that so much anymore. But it's kind of brought me back. Like as much as we're talking about how different this album is from any other album that came out in '97, if there's one thing that sort of made it like a '90s hip hop album, it is Live at Night 90.3, 94. Like that's sure. Just was it like a minute and a half of just Latif? It's just Latif, I think. Right?
It's Latif freestyling on a radio show. Yeah,
it's dope. It's fucking dope.
Really dope. Really dope. It's funny how this album came together too. Like, I don't know if you guys know this, but so like Latyrx wasn't a group. They didn't plan on doing an album together. They just were working on some songs. They were in the same crew, and like I think they just ended up with a bunch of songs, and we're like, well, let's just hammer some more out and like release an album. And to be let's fast forward right after '97. You know how many Latyrx albums came out until 2013? 0.
One.
Well, there was like an EP the year before. They kept collaborating. You know, the Quantum crew was still the Quantum crew, and there were songs with Latif and Lyrics Born, but Latyrx disappeared after this. Probably because I don't think these records sold that well. I think it became an underground like legend later on, but I don't think they found success as Latyrx. Probably for the reasons that maybe, if you like that maybe Dion doesn't think it's the most hip hop album, or maybe, Gary loved some of it but didn't love all of it. I think it's great driving music, especially Muzappers Mixes.
Yes. I'll give that to you.
Muzappers Mixes, that whole album is so it's funky. It's so funky. And songs like Storm Warning, which is crazy. So much work went into them rapping in unison and trading bars on that song. I think it's so good. There's a few more songs where they're literally, as opposed to the Latyrx song where it's two different verses, they're literally spitting the same exact verse in unison the whole way through. Like almost harmonizing, like a higher tone and a lower tone spitting the same words, complex. Really cool. Happens a few times on Muzappers Mixes. Hey, listen, it's a different vibe, man. It's a completely different vibe.
No, I loved it.
Yeah.
Loved it.
It's a chill vibe.
Chill. I don't know why I feel so energized when I listen to it. Chill is not the word I would use.
It's the funk, man. You're
I'm just a
you
funk
love funk, and
guy.
this combines funk and hip hop. It's great. And one of the things that to be honest, I didn't love about this, but weirdly enough, although I didn't love it, it also kind of worked for it. Is on the Muzappers mix where the first 3 tracks is using the same beat. It's
same
like the
sample.
Muzappers beat.
Yeah.
And it kind of. It was a point where it kind of got a little bit annoying, but not really. I know I sound a little conflicted, but it's almost similar to the way the first track on the album is, where it's you're hearing 2 different verses, and at first it's oh, this is kind of annoying, but then when you kind of get into it, you realize oh, okay, wait, now I'm kind of in a trance, and they are different songs. You just they just it more felt like a mixtape. The first 3 tracks on Muzappers Mix felt like a mixtape. I mean, it's called Muzappers Mix. I imagine. It's it has that sort of mixtape vibe. Then it kind of settles in, and when it settles in, that's where I like it a little more, because you said, it ends very strong.
Weren't there some instrumental tracks on Muzappers Mix also?
Yeah,
I
appreciated
that a lot.
It ends with an instrumental version of most of those songs that you heard in the beginning of the album, for sure. And then the new release of this album, I'm sure you guys noticed, has a brand new Latyrx track.
Yeah.
About,
what's it called?
I don't remember. Oh, it's called Arrest the President, and it is fucking awesome.
He ain't talking about Bill Clinton in '97 when this shit came out. This is a brand new song they added.
It's called, I think one of the featured artists is Tronald Dump.
I saw that.
Amazing.
It's a very, we love it. I mean, at least I love it. Very anti-Trump song.
Oh, yeah. It's great.
So that might, this day and age, shitting on Trump is not anything new or unique. But I would say one thing I categorize their music as is courageous. Do you guys get that?
Okay.
There's a fearlessness in deciding to make music so so left of anything commercial. I think it takes courage, and it takes dedication to the craft to be like, you know what? I know this is not going to be a hit. This is, you know.
I don't know. I could identify with that so closely with what we're doing. It's like, no way anybody's going to listen to this. But let's do it anyway because we like it, you know?
Okay.
That's interesting, Gary. Interesting. That's actually pretty good.
Takes zero courage.
To all you nobodies listening, we love you. Thank you.
Yeah. Fuck you.
Wow. There we have it. I don't know if there's a better way to end this episode than that.
All right, peace.
Oh, boy.
We might have to cut that. I'm sorry. You know, sometimes I go too far. I didn't mean it.
Well, it takes a big man to admit when he's wrong, Gary.
Thank you.
You know what? Reining things back in. You know what?
Help me here.
So I was just talking about how like it's not, you know, it's not quite a fully hip hop album. What it is, and this is one of the main notes I wrote about this. The whole thing is closer to spoken word poetry to dope beats, right?
Yeah.
Like in the way, like again, there are, as we just talked about, there are some classic hip hop verses and tracks, but for the most part, especially with like the sort of sing-songy nature of it, do this. If you listen to the album again and try to think of the music either like much lower or just take the music out of it and just listen to, you know, just
like deaf
listen to
poetry.
The verses. It sounds like that. Yeah, it sounds like some Def Poetry Jam shit, and it's dope. It's like it's really cool. So when I look at it like that, it's like okay, now I sort of look at this album as kind of like a different thing. Like I at first I couldn't really categorize it, and I kind of had that thought, and I forgot to mention that earlier when we were talking about this. But that's kind of what it comes down to. Now, what do you guys think of that?
I see it. I see spoken word poetry as an influence into how, like, I think they were definitely influenced by it, but there is more of a rhythm to the delivery and a dedication to being on beat, even though
I think it would be really interesting to like. I'm actually psyched to do that. I wish there was a way to listen to just the vocals over a metronome.
You could probably find.
You know,
I'm sure the isolated vocals exist.
I have a feeling I would learn a ton.
Possible.
Like what? Like what do you think?
Just about how to make good vocals over music, right? Just like how that works, like the methodology for rhyming, kind of how they use their words and structure the bars. Like I'm sure that would be a masterclass in how to write.
It's interesting, Gary, that I don't know if. So I think about it, and I would probably feel frustrated. I think I learn more by hearing the same thing but over the music itself, like where your voice lands on top of, in, and around the music. So it's interesting that you think that.
Well, dude, we could both be right. Like what you're talking about is some next level shit. I'm talking about the very simple, technique of how a musician writes and how they rhyme things.
Well, we are
to a beat.
We are all, each one of us, in varying degrees, and I've mentioned this before, human beings who have at least attempted to write and recite rap music, right? And I think that puts us in a different space than some other listeners. If you've never, I look at this group as if you've never attempted to write a verse, you probably might be very turned off by this music. In the same way I think that about Royce sometimes, or about some of these super complex rappers. You know, the weirder and the more complex they get, I think people who like have attempted and to a large degree failed at writing like a great rap song, because I've tried really hard for many years to write great rap music, and some of it I listen back and I go, wow, I wrote that. But most of it I'm like, I can't believe I spent so much time trying to make this shit. But I listen to like people who do it on expert levels like Latyrx Born and Latif, and I go, holy shit, like they have to have been born with this shit in their blood, you know.
Did you say Latyrx Born?
I would say that.
Just gonna leave that there. Where's the spoon?
Where's the spoon? Oh god, I don't know how much. I mean, I thought I was gonna have so much to say, but I did not write any notes this week. I'm sorry, guys, but
I think it's correct. I think we did it. I think we did it. And we did it in a way that like will leave me continuing to listen to their music, and like if there is an opportunity to see a performance of this music, I would jump at that. Let's do that. Like guys, if you're not sick of going to Latyrx shows, let's go.
Well, they don't really tour, but when Latyrx Born comes back around, and he will. Yeah. You know, God willing, this COVID fuckery will be done. I'll give it another year. Maybe 2. But when concerts are a thing again and Latyrx Born comes back around, all 3 of us have to go. It is, I'm telling you, Gary, it's a sight to behold. Witnessing his breath control.
We
live.
met him too.
We did meet him.
Met him too.
That's right. There's a picture.
He signed a track listing that my ex-girlfriend I think has. So I've never seen that again. Yeah. But yeah.
This is a great show. And while I am a bit, I'm gonna admit it. I'm a little disappointed that I thought for some reason that most of this music, besides the first track on the first album, I thought Gary was gonna be like, "Wow, Benny, thank you." I don't know why. Well, maybe it's because you know why. Wait, real quick, Gary, real quick. The reason I thought that, and it's probably my own fault, is because you are as weird as Latyrx is. But maybe you're just not you're not on the same wavelength. Yeah.
I wasn't in the hole with the smoke and the wet leaves.
You don't burn wet leaves
with those two.
You burn.
Well, I do, but you burn
like dry
in a
leaves.
different part of the country, and like with you guys, right? So it's look for me it was really. It was interesting and it was challenging and it was like funky and it was easy to listen to. Like the beats were super easy for me to listen to and enjoy immediately, right? It just never got inside me because of the fact that I'm probably still under the influence and humming, Fiona Apple songs. And like, I'm still under the influence of being just blown away by some of this other music that we've had. And I don't have enough RAM.
You're in your brain.
my RAM. Yeah, exactly.
Although,
my RAM is.
Gary, I will
low.
say you kind of mentioned this earlier, and maybe this is the case with you, but you did say that it for sometimes music like this, it takes you a little bit, like even a couple of years to get into. So I am still confident because Ben, I fully agree with you. I think this is I think Latyrx is a group that's right up Gary's alley. So I am confident that like a year or 2 from now, hey, maybe it'll coincide with COVID going away. That Gary will fully appreciate Latyrx. But Gary, I will say, if you like even the vibe of this, you really should, and the same goes to the audience too, because again, like Ben said, we likely will do this album at some point. Listen to the Mighty Underdogs, because it's
way more hip hop.
Like, way more hip hop, and not as weird. Latyrx Born is only on 1 track, I think.
Yeah,
right?
he's
on one. It's Gift of Gab from Black Alicious and Latif from Latyrx, but yeah, just to go forward with that, and also any Latyrx Born album, honestly.
Yeah, his albums are way less. Like all the weirdness of Latyrx,
a little weird. It's
still weird, but it's not like 2 people rapping in unison to different versus weird at all. It's way more actually even funkier. His solo stuff. Later That Day is an incredible album.
I look forward to it.
So I think this can even. I think Gary, your take on it can count as a. I think this signifies we should just wrap it up. Like I love it. I think this is what I look for in music. True uniqueness, your own vision. I know I talk about him a lot, but Royce 5'9" is a big influence on me. And he said on his last album, focus on the art, not the wave. Because you can, if you focus on the wave, you might own your masters. But if the music doesn't age well, you own 100% of nothing. And this music aged really well, and I'd say their fan base grew. All the years that they weren't making albums, people were going, when's the next Latyrx album? The music aged really well. There's nothing. I listen to it. Sometimes I listen to an album from 97, I go, this sounds so 97. You know what I mean? The beginning of the Jiggy era, those samples, you just think about shiny suits and fucking Will Smith, and just like there's songs that just sound so 97. This sounds like it was made in the 70s and the future at the same time. You know what I mean? And like,
oh, what a way to put it. Yes.
That's pretty good, man. That's pretty good.
I love this shit, man. I love Latyrx. Lyrics Born is literally, in my opinion, number 2 only to Black Thought in the greatest live MCs ever. And that's a bold statement from me. I just said my own statement was bold. Sorry, but fuck it.
I think
it's like give yourself a nickname, bro.
Italic. I would say it's italic.
Okay. Yes, it's Comic Sans. So. Yeah. At any rate, thank you guys. Thanks for opening your minds enough, Gary. Thank you for opening your mind to it. I think Dion's right. I think you're gonna love this one day. Gary, why don't you give us your last licks, and then Dion, give us your last licks and your pick, man.
Yep.
Dude, it's already licked. You go.
All right. Thank you for making it awkward.
That's what we want from you, baby. Just in general, like I said, I really do like these two albums. I like the different shit they did, especially like you said, especially being 97 and how different this was. But I think I generally, like I just said, like it's Mighty Underdogs and Lyrics Born solo and Latif. What's Latif's solo stuff actually?
I've heard it. I don't have anything to rifle off the top of my head. Sorry.
Okay. So sorry. So I having listened to playing Lyrics Born, playing like and the Mighty Underdogs album, I would if you'd have put a gun to my head and say, hey, bump one of these, I would probably put Latyrx last. But I still really like it. It's like Ben, like you said, it's good to like put on in the car or put on at a party or something like that. Yeah. It just in general, just in terms of like just pure hip hop album. Like if I want to like, again, if I want to put something on, I want to bump to like some verses and stuff like that and like sort of be more traditional. This is probably not the album I'm picking, but that being said, I still love it. Look, I've known this album not since it first came out, but I've known it for a while. Like I've always loved this. Muzappers Mixes was the first time I heard it. I must have heard Lady Don't Techno before because that song sounds way.
I think that was their biggest song. Honestly,
it probably I would think so. And it uses a sample. It samples from the Message actually, or the song that the Message samples from.
Okay.
Which is funny when you mentioned that earlier. It actually samples from a song called "Every Brother Ain't a Brother" by Panache, which itself samples the Message by Furious 5. They both came out in '82, so it's one of those back in the day where like people just sample each other. Like, and of course, as we know, that's one of the most influential and pioneering hip hop songs ever. The Message, and also it 284 songs use the Message as a sample, whether it's a vocal reference or a musical reference.
I did not know that.
I mean, "Can't Nobody Hold Me Down" by Puff and Mace is probably one of the big examples.
Of course,
we know that shit.
Yeah.
But anyway, so bottom line is I love this album. I always have. But it's not my favorite that either of these artists have put out. Let's just put it that way. So I'm obviously not shitting on it. This definitely deserves to be on this podcast and deserves to be talked about. Like, I mean, clearly. So Ben, thank you for putting it together. And I see why you wanted to do the two albums together. At first, I was like, what the hell is this shit? But after listening to it a few times, I'm like, you know what?
It's like a sister album, or like it's like a supplementary release. I have a feeling all those songs were recorded before Latyrx came out. That's my. That's
something that I learned from this project. That a lot of times work is grouped like that, right? Like an artist is in a certain mindset or kind of phase in their creation of work, and this is what they're producing, and it might be like two pieces of work following one another, and they're certainly in the same bucket.
Right.
Actually, and Ben, to that, I think you're absolutely right, because the Quickening is technically like a remix of The Reckoning.
Love The Reckoning.
Live version of The Reckoning later on in the album, on the Latyrx, the album. And the original Reckoning is actually on Muzappers
Exactly.
Mixes.
It's weird.
I think
it's all the same collection of music they made around that time.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I almost kind of wish this was a double album, and all those Muzappers Mix songs at the top of the Muzappers Mix that uses that one beat. I almost wish that was like put it all in one track, and
maybe
that's
like
the first track
or the closing, maybe.
Or the closing.
Could have been
exactly.
Like,
it closed exactly.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, look, I'm not telling people 23 years ago what to do with their album. There's their music, and whatever they did, it worked for them, and it's great. But if I were to do it this day or today, I'd probably do it that way. But again, who the fuck am I? I'm just an asshole with a podcast.
You're not an asshole. You're a beautiful man.
It's true. So my pick for next week. So we past couple weeks we've done some interesting things. Our last episode was Fiona Apple, which was a Gary pick that kind of threw me and Ben off a little bit. Obviously, it's a little bit different than the things that we've been doing. Ben, this week you did an album where you clearly absolutely love. I really like it, and Gary wasn't so hot in it, which is great. That's what makes these conversations great.
I grew.
You grew, exactly. But I want to bring us back to an album that I know the three of us fucking love. We semi grew up in this album, I guess sort of more recent years. And it's influenced a lot of our sort of recent thinking. This artist is one of our favorites. We've already done an album by this artist already. I'm talking about MF Doom, Food.
Yes.
One of my favorite fucking albums of all time. It's just probably, honestly, I probably bumped this, like, no joke, me probably top 5, at least top 10 favorite albums, hip-hop albums of all time.
This is one
of those albums that, to me, is perfect. It's you can bump it from track 1 to the last track, and it's fucking incredible. And I know for a fact that you guys feel the same way about it. So I kind of wanted to, again, after a couple weeks where we kind of each put our own thing, like not real knowing if the others are gonna love it or not. I just wanted to sort of bring us back to, like, all right, let's reset, and this is something that we'll all all enjoy, and this is gonna be a fun week. I don't know if we're recording next week or in 2 weeks, but however long until the next time we record is gonna be really fun.
You guys will get
so
cracked.
Psyched for this, Dion. Yeah, you guys will.
You guys will get cracked.
This is exactly what I need for this coming week. I need this in my life. Thank you, Dion.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, guys. Go and listen to one of the greatest rap albums ever made by my favorite rapper of all time, MF Doom. It is called Food. And we'll see you here next time. You've been listening to the Rap Lizards podcast. We want to thank a few people before we sign off. We want to thank our man Fred, the Red Walrus, who provides all of these awesome interludes, intros, and outros. All that music is his. Go find him on Bandcamp. Please download his shit. It's supporting excellent independent artists. We also want to thank our producer, Nate. You are the man. Everything you do for us it's unbelievable. We're lucky to have you. We love you, man.
Thank you, Nate. And thank you, Fred.
Nate's the kind of guy that, like, you're in a plane crash together.
You're glad he's there.
You crash and you crash in the Arctic, okay? And you're like, shit, I'm in the Arctic now. I got to survive. Nate's the guy who, like, he'll eat the dead guy with you, but, like, he'll make you feel better about it. You'll realize it's, like, the reasonable thing to do, and, like, Nate has an axe, so, like, thanks, Nate.
That's pretty good.
Nate,
that's true.
Thank you for eating dead guys with us. All right. Listen, it's been a good show. We'll see you here next time, guys. Peace.
You guys will get cracked. Let me stop this shit. Yo, hope you enjoyed that. Just a reminder that next episode will be Beats, Rhymes, and Life by Tribe Called Quest. Peace.